Coming up tonight, a German man found dead in a construction site opposite the office of the Prime Minister. Police suspect suicide. An Olympian loses his life overnight following a fight in Abaco. And coming up in our arts and entertainment segment, our Jean Joseph shines the spotlight on song artist Shine. This is our News Weekend edition. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Megan Shepard. A German man in his 50s is dead tonight. Police ruling the death as an alleged suicide. The incident taking place at the Wind Development Limited construction site on West Bay Street. The deceased is said to be a construction worker on the site and was in the country for less than a month. Now exclusive to our news, Paul Wynn, developer and owner of Wynn Construction Limited, telling our news that it's a very sad situation, adding that he cannot imagine the mental state of someone that tragically makes the decision to end their life. Police Press Liaison Officer Chief Superintendent Kristen Skippings speaking to reporters on the scene. She says the man was scheduled to work today, adding that police received the report around 3 p.m. today.
Officers responded, and on arrival, they met a Caucasian male on the second floor with injuries to his neck. It is reported that co-workers of the deceased met him hanging by tie straps in the building.
Chief Superintendent Skippings giving this word of advice to those who may have thoughts of committing suicide.
You have emotional stress, you have financial stress, you have mental stress, whatever stresses that you're going through. I want to encourage people to find someone and talk to. There should be someone who you can confide in, who can walk you through the difficult time. You don't have to resort to injuring yourselves in any way or attempting to injure yourself. Find someone, find a police officer, find a teacher, talk to someone.
Police are investigating a shooting incident that left one man dead in Mount Hope, North Abaco. Police say initial reports reveal that a group of men were involved in a physical altercation in the parking lot of a local nightclub. One of the men left and returned with a firearm. He discharged that weapon, shooting one of the males in the chest. Upon arrival of EMS, they found no signs of life. The victim was later pronounced dead at the Marsh Harbor Clinic. Friends and family have identified the shooting victim as 29-year-old national sprinter Chavez Hart. Meantime, the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture, Mario Boleg, extending condolences on the passing of former Bahamian sprinter Chavez Hart. The statement noting that Hart was the third fastest Bahamian of all time in the 100 meters with a time of 10.10 seconds. He also competed in the 200 meters, closing his career with a personal best of 20.23 seconds in that event. Hart ran professionally under the Puma brand. The minister adding that he extends prayers for healing and comfort to the family of the bereaved during this difficult time. The Ministry of Health hosting a press conference yesterday to update the nation on the fight against HIV. Director of the National HIV/AIDS and Infectious Diseases Program, Dr. Nakia Forbes, telling media that as it relates to the AIDS-free generation, they are having success in reducing mother-to-child transmissions.
There were no babies born with HIV in the Bahamas in the years 2010, 2015, 2019, 2020, and 2021. And so we've had 0% HIV transmission mother to baby in the last 3 years in the Bahamas.
Dr. Forbes says that less than 200 children are living with HIV in the country.
The reason that's low is because we've come a very long way, Ms. Ward, when we look at our prevention of mother to baby HIV. So over the years, from the year 2003, We have had a robust program whereby pregnant women who have HIV are put on medications. And if they're on medications early, and if we can get them to that undetectable viral load, they're very unlikely to have a baby that's born HIV positive. And we also have mechanisms whereby if they don't reach that target, they can have a cesarean section.
And as it relates to new infection cases, here's the latest statistics.
In the year 2019, there were 133 new HIV infections. This is generally, I don't have the breakdown actually there were no babies born with HIV in the year 2019. And this differed in the year 2010, there were 285 new HIV cases.
Dr. Forbes says testing has come a long way.
One can come in and get testing at our center. That is the Ministry of Health Center on Rosetta Street. The reference lab on Shirley Street also provides free HIV testing. We have things like partners testing where people can come in with their partner and get tested. You can come in individually. There are labs in the country where you can go in and be tested privately and provide. It can be an anonymous test, and then you can come back for your results. And we're also moving towards self-testing. We're doing an HIV self-testing pilot now, where we are validating this test so that it can be available at points of care, for example, a supermarket or a pharmacy.
The Hurricane Dorian benefit concert is now in the history books following controversy involving some survivors who say this was not the right avenue to show support. Nonetheless, the room was filled with supporters as headlining international gospel artist CeCe Winans took the stage.
I believe a lot of people in Abaco watching us tonight.
Hundreds of residents turning out in support of the Hurricane Dorian benefit concert at Bahamar Thursday evening.
I had a few family members that live in Abaco. Most of them survived and my uncle died. So I came out to the survivors.
I wanted to let my fellow Bahamians from Abaco and Grand Bahama know that all of us who didn't experience what they did, we're here. We have them in our hearts.
Even though you want to enjoy yourself, at the end of the day, people need to receive something, so we're here to give something back.
Our boss is actually one of the sponsors for the event, and we just work so hard on this project that we want to see it through to fruition.
The concert kicking off with local music artists. Simeon Outen was among them. And the Dorian Memorial Mass Choir, a collaboration of various gospel artists in the industry. Press Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Clint Watson, reminding attendees of the event's importance.
Please plant a seed that we can help those who are in need. How many know that the greatest blessing comes when you have seed in the ground, then you could expect a harvest?
And then it was time for the highlight of the night, gospel recording artist CeCe Winans. Winans saying she understands times have been rough and people are still hurting, but know that there is a God who sees, who knows, and who cares.
And he specializes in the impossible. So when we look around and we see impossible situations, I want to encourage you to look up.
Still to come on our news as we remember the devastation of Hurricane Dorian this week. A contract has been signed to renovate 5 clinics in Abaco. Abaco is on the move to full restoration. And 2 families who lost their homes to Hurricane Dorian have been given keys to new homes. That's coming up when the weekend edition continues.
What we're doing is we seem to be saying to 80% of the student population, you're really not good enough.
The PGCSE is a Bahamian exam. Your average is going to be around that high point, which is the D.
Schools are churning out 5,000 children a year that need jobs.
We're producing generations of Bahamians whose goal is to get out.
A contract signing for renovation work at 5 clinics in Abaco following a key presentation Thursday. The contracts are for the renovation of Foxtown Clinic, Cooperstown Clinic, Sandy Point Clinic, and 2 clinics on Moores Island. Health and Wellness Minister Dr. Michael Darville says the renovations are thanks to a loan facility from the Inter-American Development Bank.
What we're doing today is we, from the Ministry of Health and Wellness, is about to start the work here at the Marsh Harbor Clinic to get it to a point that we feel satisfactory. And in the latter part of this year and early next year, the loan facility from the IDB will kick in, where major repair work will start here at the facility.
Officials presenting 2 Abaco families with keys to their new homes in Central Pines, Abaco on Thursday evening. The lack of housing is a major issue on that island after thousands of homes were destroyed by Hurricane Dorian, leaving many homeless. One of the residents, Rebecca Knoll, says it feels good to be in her own home.
We were renting at the time of Dorian, and it was relocating and everything, so basically just been making do for now, but to have something that can accommodate all of us and call our own, it's a good feeling.
And as we continue our coverage on remembering Hurricane Dorian 3 years later, tonight we get an update on a well-known business in Grand Bahama that was severely impacted by the monster storm. In this report, the general manager says, although things are not where they used to be, they are still pressing on. Italia Hall has the details.
Dolly Madison has been a part of the Grand Bahama community since the 1960s. It's just one of the few hardware stores on the island that provides lots of needed essentials. But following Hurricane Dorian's passing 3 years ago, General Manager James Roll says following the storm, it became difficult to provide for the community in the way it used to, as the storm took its entire inventory.
We never realized how much damage was in the store until we actually got inside.
He says floodwaters busted the store's entrance.
The force was so great that it moved around the items within the store and just blew everything outside. So we had persons in the community who passed this way, and basically they were finding the items that were in the store out on the streets.
And once Roll got inside, he says he was not prepared for what he saw.
There was all mud, there were piles of items all over the place. If you had a chance to pass on the outside, you would have seen mounts and mounts of debris, which were actually items that we had for sale in the store.
He says nothing was salvaged and the store had to be cleaned up. The store still managed to provide for the community from a temporary site, only bringing in basic necessities. And 3 years later, Dolly Madison is now in a smaller portion of what used to be his furniture store.
It speaks to the downsides that we have done in terms of our operation, because if you move from a mega store that we once were and you look at what we had now, this is like about 1/3 of what our main operation was when we were up prior to Hurricane Dorian.
Reporting for our news, I'm Italia Hall.
Thanks, Italia. When our news comes back from the break, it has been 25 years since the world's princess died. We remember Diana, the royal who brought the common touch. In the 5th part of a series on Hurricane Dorian survivors, we continue to share their stories of resilience 3 years later. We have the details when our News Weekend edition returns.
What we're doing is we seem to be saying to 80% of the student population, you're really not good enough.
The PGCSE is a Bahamian exam. Your average is going to be around that high point, which is the D.
Schools are churning out 5,000 children a year that need jobs.
We're producing generations of Bahamians whose goal is to get out.
August 31st marked the 25th anniversary of the tragic death of Princess Diana, known as the People's Princess. Her funeral in 1997 was watched by an estimated 2.5 billion people. Tonight, we remember the legacy of the People's Princess with the help of a local collector. Marlena Leonard reports.
Princess Diana's untimely death shocked the world when they woke to reports of her death on August 31st, 1997. Her legacy as a down-to-earth and humble royal, even known as the People's Princess, helped humanize the royal family for many, in both positive and negative lights. George Darville is a royal family enthusiast and stamp collector. He brought his commemorative Princess Diana stamps, created by the Bahamas Post Office in 1998, to tell us more about his love for collecting and his thoughts on the late Diana.
My greatest stamp is that of Diana at her death in 1997.
Darville heralds Diana as one of the most influential people of the last century.
She is, within our generation, one of the most intriguing people, as well as, I would say, one of the most intriguing people in the past 100 years. She was a little bit of a rebel when it came to protocol and the status quo, especially with the royal family. She deliberately set out to be more of a people's princess.
Darville is also a sculptor whose work has been locally exhibited and has done works of Diana in marble in the past. But Darville's collection spans beyond the royals, also featuring our own Golden Girls, as well as historical figures like Madam C.J. Walker and Malcolm X. For anyone interested in starting their own stamp collection, Darville says,
the Bahamas Post Office, it does offer stamps that you can buy. It's on the same floor where you pick up your mail. You can go there and just look at the collections that they're offering. If you have a curiosity about the world, interest, and people, well, those stamps that are presented, you can easily collect them.
But his Diana stamps are the pride of his collection, saying her legacy is one that will impact the royal family for generations through her charity work and her humanizing of the monarchy.
She also was one of the most prominent members who featured in sponsoring charities or foundations, and her activities impacted a lot of people, right? And there was a lot of empathy. Well, she bridged that gap, right? On a personal level.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Marlena Leonard.
Thanks, Marlena. Tonight, we wrap up our Where Are They Now series. Shamara Parodi describing the events of September 1st as a surreal experience. She says at the last minute, she, along with her son and other family members, made the decision to ride out Hurricane Dorian at a warehouse, thinking the cement structure would offer more protection.
We set up camp. We invited family members with pets to come in, so there were 6 of us in this area, and everything was going well. But when you looked outside, you couldn't see anything. It was completely white, and the noise, it felt like your ears wanted to bleed. So we came from the front area into the warehouse, and the ceilings collapsed and fell on top of us. We thought we'd be safe behind the shelves, but the doors blew open. The steel doors tore in half. It started to flood. It flooded about a foot inside of the building.
Parodi says they all ended up in the powder room as they listened to the building cracking for hours. She says following the storm, they were stuck in the building for days as they were unable to get past the flooded waters. She recalls what it was like seeing civilization for the first time.
It felt like going into a war zone. It didn't feel like the aftermath of a storm. It felt like you were going into an area that had been bombed. People, you could see it on their face. They didn't look right. They weren't behaving right. Everyone was kind of like a zombie, just going through the motions. It didn't feel like a real experience.
And now, 3 years later, Parodi is back in her home, but she says it's been bittersweet.
It's difficult to relax because you feel like it could all be gone again in an instant. So yeah, I'm back at home and I'm back at work and able to go through my routine like I did before Dorian, but I'm not comfortable. And I think a lot of people still don't feel comfortable because it can be gone again by the end of the year. It could be gone by next week. There's no permanence anymore to things.
She says she still experiences certain triggers, such as heavy wind or rain. She says she believes this may be the case for many Abaconians.
Physically, it's recovering. I think mentally, a lot of us haven't moved on. And that's just a lack of mental health care that's available to us. I think physically, you know, we're moving on because we have to, but mentally, I think a lot of people are still stuck, you know, in September the 1st.
And to Bahamians across the country,
we haven't moved on, and just to be sensitive of that, because it was a huge trauma for a lot of us, all of us really, and it is difficult to move on. So be patient. Don't minimize it. Don't say, "Oh, it's been 3 years. Get over it." If it was that easy, we would have. So be kind to people from Abaco and Grand Bahama, and be patient with us. We're doing the best we can.
And still to come on the weekend edition, rainy weather, keep the faith. The weather report is on the way. And our Jean Joseph has a sit down with song artist Shine. That's coming up when our news returns.
What we're doing is we seem to be saying to 80% of the student population, you're really not good enough.
The PGCSE is a Bahamian exam. Your average is going to be around that high point, which is the D.
Schools are churning out 5,000 children a year that need jobs.
We're producing generations of Bahamians whose goal is to get out.
As we remember Dorian 3 years later, let's continue to take every weather system seriously. Here's weather over the next few days. Shine, a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist, has been captivating crowds with performances of hits like Feel Like Whining and Do It On My Own since his solo debut in 2019. While the pandemic put a pause on Shine's burst onto the scene, he continues to set the pace and sits down with our Jean Joseph to make sure the music is locked.
Hey Bahamas, this your boy Shine 242. We ain't been recording artists, and we here at Mama Joe's.
Shine has been doing music all his life, performing in various bands throughout his youth, eventually entering Aquinas College's music program. He would play integral roles in the Roots Junkanoo Group and the Valley Boys before enlisting in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, taking his musicianship to another level as a multi-instrumentalist, singer, and drum major. But now, he's on his own, relentlessly pursuing a solo career after a 3-year run with the Synergy Band, standing in the gap to bridge the generations of male rake and scrape artists.
I just, kind of took a risk, me doing music all my life, and making that transition from being in a band to a solo artist.
Shine says he's been figuring out the ever-changing music industry, and so far, so good. The artist says he's focused on new releases to add to his music catalog and works with local artists like Rick Carey, Bloody, and Johnny Cake, and he's looking forward to more collaborations with local and international artists. He calls on his peers to push the envelope and widen the Bahamas' musical footprint.
Afro beats, they flooding the market. Rap been flooding the market. Reggae been flooding the market. Soca flooding the market. In order to make some kind of presence felt in the world, I think we just need to release more music.
With many artists branching off into other genres and turning their backs on the rake and scrape sound, Shine says more talented musicians need to take up the mantle and push the genre forward.
Shine 242 is very relentless when it comes to pushing his culture. That's what I live for, right now at this point in time in my life. I believe in bridging the gap. I believe in getting the youth on board with this thing. This our own.
You can find Shine on social media and your favorite streaming platform on the Shine 242 or Shine Bahamas. For our news, arts and entertainment, I'm Gene Joseph.
We thank you so much for joining us for our News Weekend edition. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Megan Shepard. Continue to have a wonderful weekend.